State, rebuttal when you're ready.
Thank you. Defense counsel argued that defendant told you yesterday, and he did, that this has a lot to do with everything I've been through and everything I've seen. You've heard no evidence, zero evidence of the defendant and what he saw and what he's been through. You are not.
Burden shifting?
I'll overrule the objection. I'll just remind everybody, there's no obligation or burden on the defense to do anything. You may continue.
The defense has no burden. But when you hear arguments that defy logic, you can reject the arguments by the defense. The defendant doesn't have to prove anything in this case, but he did. He proved everything in this case when he took that stand yesterday, and he said, I was sitting in the car thinking about it before I went into the house. I thought about killing my parents before I went into the house. So again, does the defense have to prove anything? No. Is it my burden? Yes. And I urge you to hold the state to its burden. But you have heard no evidence, absolutely no evidence about what the defendant has seen and what the defendant has been through. And that is not burden shifting. That is simply a fact. The defendant described this as rage, but not rage that developed suddenly from a sudden event, some altercation with his parents, something that would make an ordinary, reasonable person lose self-control. This wasn't something sudden that happened that made Dima Tower lose his normal self-control and go in there and stab his parents. As I said earlier, his parents were fast asleep in their bed. They posed absolutely no danger to him. They did nothing to upset him or provoke his rage that night. I don't know where his rage was fostered, and neither do you. But he had rage for his parents when he was sitting out in that car, and he acted on that rage. This was not manslaughter. This was not a crime of passion. He sat out in his car and thought about it. And again, you're going to hear instructions about speculation. They're in your jury instructions. On Monday night, you took an oath to well and truly try this case based on the law and based on the facts, not on speculation. In fact, the jury instructions forbid you to speculate about the defendant's past or what he's seen or what he went through when his mother died. That's pure speculation, and you may not do that. Do not let yourself be persuaded because the defendant tried to, and was prevented, correctly so, from talking about his past, because that is not why we're here. We're here because the defendant killed his parents. The law doesn't change for people to fit their situations. Whether you're an executive of Coca-Cola or whether you're a kid from a bad neighborhood, whether you graduated from Northport High School or you graduated from Harvard, the law is the same for every single person. And what he went through when he was a kid has nothing to do with this crime that he committed. Don't be persuaded that because the defendant had a horrible childhood and he ended up in an orphanage, that he's somehow justified in doing what he did. Those photographs say everything. There is no justification for that. I'm asking you to think about the facts and think about the law, and only that, because there is no room for sympathy or speculation in your job. I'm asking you to hold the defendant accountable for what he did. I'm asking you to find him guilty of killing Robbie Tower and Jennifer Tower after premeditation. I'm asking you to hold him guilty of first-degree murder on both counts, and also for fleeing to elude law enforcement officer with lights and siren. I thank you for your patience and your attention.
And that concludes the closing arguments.